Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and of course, stream for fun. Today we're talking about the worst game of the year, 2025. Now I do these because I think they're interesting, and we always hear about what game of the year is depending on the awards show, but I do think it's interesting to think about the worst game of the year and highlight some of the companies and devs and publishers that maybe you should be leery of a little bit. So in 2023, we had The Day Before, which was a complete scam pretty much. I mean, they didn't even launch a game, lied about it through their marketing, played through a whole bunch of stuff. In 2024, we had Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Which was my pick, which again was a very, very poor game. Even with the delay, it really didn't do it many favors. And yeah, the whole live service scene of it was just awful. And we did play that a little bit. In 2025, it's going to be Mind's Eye. Now, this was a game that was made by Build a Rocket Boy, that's the dev studio, and then it was published by IO Interactive, also known as IOI. The founder of Build a Rocket Boy, or BRB, was Leslie Benzies, and he had an idea for a platform. The platform was Everywhere. So Everywhere was a foundation with tools for creators to build with. Ultimately, this was something like Minecraft or Roblox, where the users can come in, be able to have a suite of tools and a bunch of assets that they can put in and manipulate, and then build user-generated content. The idea was to release an episodic game called Mind's Eye, and to start getting players into the game before focusing on the platform for Everywhere. So basically get them in and then have them have with a foundation for users to basically make content for the studio and for the publisher. And I'm sure this is actually pretty close to what the pitch was because of how much money they actually had put into the project. It was quite a bit. So the investors, well, in order to build all of this, they basically needed some money. So Build a Rocket Boy had 3 rounds of funding. Actually, more than that. They actually had more than 3 rounds of funding, but again, I couldn't see all of that information unless I wanted to pay for it. But ultimately, it totaled $151 million, roughly. The investors were Redbird, NetEase, Galaxy Interactive, and these were some of the biggest contributors actually to the funding, but there were 9 others for a total of 12 that are pretty much never getting their money back. The funding happened from 2020 all the way through 2024, so they roughly had 3.5 years, and that equaled about 151 million. The game had a release date of June 10th, 2025, but the game got out early. There were some copies that got released, kind of like with Assassin's Creed Shadows, so BRB, Build a Rocket Boy, released the game a week early anyway. And they were telling people that had gotten copies that broke street date to be like, oh, don't play them. We don't have a day one patch. But again, the information was starting to get out there already. Some people were already starting to stream it, though some accounts did get banned or did get penalties, whether on Twitch or somewhere else, because of breaking street date. But yeah, it was interesting to see what some of that stuff was. And some of that was starting to circulate around Reddit or wherever, and word was starting to get out there. So they decided just to release it early. Also, there were promotions that were not going well for the players. They were laughing. Here's one of them right here.
This game was sponsored by... If you want to check out Mind's Eye now on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC, Epic Game Store, and Steam, feel free. You can type !spawn in chat and I give you a link.
I'm pretty sure that this game is going to win Game of the Year this year.
So yeah, the game was so horrible, he just ultimately couldn't hold it together. Others had their promotions pulled. So here's this one.
What? Okay. The sponsor just paused the sponsored stream. So, first time that's happened.
And then, too, even with the day one patch, that really didn't seem to make a dent or a difference as the experience was really, really bad. Also, some were able to get a preview, and that wasn't going very well either, like Mr. Matty Plays. So ultimately, he talked about how they couldn't play, but they could just watch one of the devs play. And then while they were seeing one of the devs actually play Mind's Eye, they basically had to use cheats or God mode to ultimately progress in some parts of the game that they got to see. So yeah, the game clearly didn't run well, and it looked so basic, and it wasn't ready. It needed more time to cook. But again, this was just within probably, a few weeks basically till launch anyway, maybe about a month max. And yeah, it clearly needed more time. So ultimately, we got to the launch of the game. It was made fun of so quickly, and it made great content for a lot of channels. But Metacritic had a 37 for the critic score and a 2.5 for users. OpenCritic had a 33 for critics, and there wasn't enough player reviews to actually get a score for players. It was so bad, there were mass refunds for the game. Now, this was seen as back then, kind of still a premium product for $60, but there were mass refunds for Steam, Epic, and PlayStation Store. And what's rough, too, is that, for the devs and the publishers, when they actually have a storefront and there's a refund, well, they have to refund the entire amount back to the player. The issue with that is that it's double-edged, because the developer and publisher, well, they still have to pay money to the storefront that they sold it on. Now, for Steam, that's like 30%. And it can vary depending on exactly what the storefront is, but no matter what, you've paid for the storefront to sell your game already, and you're not getting that money back, and then you need an entire full refund to the user that wants it. So it's a double-edged sword. It can definitely cost over 100% of giving that money back. And in some cases, studios have kind of already spent it in a way, and yeah, they're not making any money on their game when that happens. So yeah, there is something interesting, is that if you sell a lot of copies, the more it's actually going to cost you because of that store's cut that you're going to give. So like for Cyberpunk 2077, just to give you an idea, this was an estimated $50 million in refunds, which is crazy, plus the cut that they gave to Epic and anyone else that actually procured refunds, which I think PlayStation was another one. Something interesting, too, was basically kind of before, during, and right after launch, BRB was claiming that there was also a hate campaign against the game, instead of actually allowing and taking the criticism and the feedback for the game in the first place. Because it wasn't just like people posting and writing about this as just words. No, there were pictures, there were videos. Like, this was really starting to get bad and out of hand. And here's actually some right here from the Angry Joe Show and Yeah Map.
I think that one's broken.
That's the me of the crew.
That's the you, the crew. Horrible. Wait a minute.
How did you abandon
It's
it?
right next to it! I'm right next to it!
You know what? You're boring me, Marco. You're fine.
Come on!
Ah!
Hey, buddy, slow down.
You told me to slow down.
The gunplay is... really feel immersed.
They were shooting. I wanted to join you.
You don't get to talk to anyone about it. Great work, team. Mission success. But you never want to anyway.
What the? Shaders are taking fucking forever. What?
I met the mayor. She doesn't seem like the benevolent type.
What the fuck is that?
It's my understanding that Mayor Vega does not allow any business to happen, other than the occasional.
Oh, you did it!
Like a true artist.
And you're killing.
It's me, Marco.
How is he shooting? No,
What?
the bullets aren't even.
The bullets weren't hitting you. Why do they show tracer fire
Yes.
if the tracer fire is nowhere near the actual bullets? And spawn in and fall from the sky? What is that?
Hold on, Marco. Hold on. What is it?
So post-launch, we're looking in July. This was 6 weeks later. We roughly had 300 employees get an at-risk letter of being laid off. And ultimately, we had roughly about 100 actually get fired from the studio. Also, too, later in the year, the IWGB, which is a union over in Great Britain, sued BRB for mishandling layoffs due to bad leadership, mistreatment, and a toxic workplace. And this was in October. In December, we have the free starter pack and a free trial basically on Xbox, which again didn't really do anything. And yet no one was really going to waste their time on this. Even looking at the score right now for Mind's Eye on the Xbox store, it's also incredibly bad at roughly a 2.5 out of... actually, no, it's a little lower than that. I think it's like a 2.3 out of 5. It's horrible. And yeah, the top things that people are looking at is all of the 1 stars. It's pretty insane. We did learn that ultimately Build a Rocket Boy wanted more time. And while there was some kind of internal delays and some things that were pushed back for the release date, IOI ultimately forced them to just launch the game. I think they ultimately wanted to be done with this, whether it was for better or for worse. And they probably knew that it was going to be bad. Partnership was signed in October of 24 between the two, and Mind's Eye was so bad, IOI has basically said that they are now just going to work on publishing their own games, but basically forego third-party publishing until further notice. So yeah, IOI didn't make any money on this either, and also condemned the game after launch with how horrible it was. Because again, they put money up to basically publish and have the rights to distribution, but again, ultimately, it wasn't anything that they were really going to be distributing, because again, the reviews were so bad, the state and quality of the game was so bad, and again, was not ready to launch, which I think they probably knew that, because there were also people at Build a Rocket Boy that left prematurely before launch. We started seeing this roughly within maybe a few weeks or a couple of months, where like the head lawyer and some of the other heads at the studio were basically leaving without really saying a word, probably under NDAs, and just tapping out before the game even came out. Also, there's supposed to be a Hitman crossover kind of DLC or event, but that was ultimately canceled. So what happened? Well, it ultimately ended up being with past projects that Benzies had worked on, the studio creator and also the head game director. The expectations just weren't there. Because again, he had worked on several GTA games, but that seemed to be kind of overindulged a little bit compared to actually how much involvement he had really had. And there was also some bad blood there between Rockstar and also Build a Rocket Boy. But what we were getting from the press and the news and also channels was that this was going to be, quote, the GTA killer, and that ultimately didn't happen. So the expectations were too high. Also, it seemed too that the studio bit off too much. And then even with some of the maybe internal delays that they got of a few months or maybe half a year or whatever with IOI, the publisher being patient with them, it still wasn't enough and it still didn't pay off. And ultimately, employees started talking about how it was very toxic. There was just a grind all the time. They were expected to just constantly work like dogs, put in all of that overtime, even work through the weekends. And again, but not really be overly compensated for it. We actually got to see some slides on this that were leaked after launch. And yeah, devs just felt too that it was a horrible work environment. Some of the devs were actually fired for giving feedback, at least that was according to them, and also not agreeing with some of the directions of the game or what the studio was doing in developing the game. And so again, if you didn't really agree with the top leadership, like Leslie Benzies, well, then you were just out of there. This was even a thing with the quality assurance that was basically removed. And yeah, clearly this ultimately had an effect, even though we have a short right here of Benzies saying that they're basically quality testing the game.
Looks beautiful. This is what we do. We sit, we play it. There's usually somebody in there who will take tickets. Chris, you got a ticket about the fire extinguisher. Did you get the raindrops over here? We'll record the videos, we'll take little chunks out, and then that will get put into the Jira database, and that will get sent out to devs to fix. You do have to play the whole thing, and that's what takes time. You've got to do a full playthrough. We've got to notice that in Mission 3, somebody said something, and continuity is okay in Mission 17. So I don't think we could have worked longer, harder, put as much blood and guts, sweat into it.
So really, the quality testing, maybe while some of that actually happened, they went through 2 directors, which was kind of insane, and they never replaced the job the third time they needed somebody. They just ultimately removed the job. And, quote, he was probably just going to do it himself or do it in-house, and again, did not want that accountability. So between the high expectations, the ego of Leslie Benzies, and then also just the crunch that they had of really not enough people, and then IOI forced the game to come out ultimately. Well, yeah, the game was awful, and it is a total mess. And today, it's still alive, it's still going, and it's still getting some updates. And there was a video roughly about a month ago, launched in November, and we got a big update number 5, but again, it didn't really change anything. So we finally have content creator tools for the actual game, but this is again only for PC. And there's been a total of 5 updates so far, or patches that the game has had. When we take a look at what's available, basically we still have the campaign, which no one's really excited on trying. And then we also have the content creator tools, which there hasn't been any content creators except for the studio itself, Build a Rocket Boy, of actually making any content. And again, these are just kind of like small game modes or little teeny things off to the side, but they're not really adding like a lot of quality content to the game. We've also seen too with the global leaderboards is that ultimately there's just 5 people that have tried out these different kind of extensions through Arcadia and everywhere, but yeah, the game is just ultimately not going anywhere. So I don't know. I mean, their reputation is just absolutely in shambles. Let's be honest, and anybody that hears of what they're going to be making next, which we still haven't heard anything, probably isn't really going to be trusting them. So that is my worst game of the year, and honestly, some of the worst leadership that we've had. And while, certainly some aspects in the overall rating for Black Ops 7 has been really bad, it is actually at a worse score than what Mind's Eye is. Mind's Eye was a game that clearly was just not ready to be put out, and there was really poor leadership leading the entire thing, and people knew it, and that's why they were leaving or expecting to be fired, or some positions were ultimately never filled at Build a Rocket Boy. But, this is sometimes what happens, and that's why I partly think it's important to talk about these, to kind of highlight some of these studios. And while it's possible for some of these studios to come about and actually become a good studio that we trust at some point, one or another, they really have to now earn it at this point. And I just think it's important for people to be leery of some of these bad studios that, or some of the leadership decisions that ultimately make The Day Before or Suicide Squad kill the Justice League, or like Mind's Eye. So thanks for tuning in, guys. You can always follow me at GamingGarbage22 if you'd like. We have various content, me, myself, and I, that we put out every single week. And if something's not for you, don't sweat it. You can just move on to the next thing. And I also use playlists to help divide up all of those videos. So if there's something that you like, you can just look for the playlist and they're there. There's also playthroughs as well. Each game has its own playlist. You can also follow me over at Twitch if you'd like at Don't Tread on D. And when I do stream, which is pretty irregular because I work a full-time job and have a family and all that jazz, you guys can hop into the chat and be a silent partner if you'd like, or if you'd like to chat too, I'll definitely chat back. But yeah, the thing that I find most interesting with Worst Game of the Year is that I do think it's something we need to talk about because, again, some of these companies in their marketing, well, they're kind of essentially lying to you to try to show the best things that they can. And we've even get to see with that short with Benzies talking about quality assurance testing, it actually looks really good in the game. But when we take a look at the actual game itself, it doesn't look that good. It doesn't run that good. And there have been some patch notes, but again, the damage has already been done, and people are just not willing to really wait or be misled like that or blatantly lied to about a game that costs, $60 or $70. I really think a lot of people are pretty much done with that. So for any publishers out there, for any dev studios, you have to get it right the first time. And with that, folks, we'll see you guys on the next one.